piece is we're going to take the North and never give it back.
I've told you before, I'm a fan. This is our second meeting. You are nice, all right? You are nice with yours, all right?
I just want to shout out to Swift at Swift Sports Network.
What's up, Swift? This is Kyler Gordon. Just want to do a quick shout out to Swift Sports Network with all the latest news on the Bears.
You ain't speaking facts, we don't want to hear it. Yeah, we going for the dub. You are now watching Swift Sports.
The Bears.
We're back. The first week of OTAs are in the books, voluntary OTAs for the Bears, and I'm joined again by guest and friend Greg Gabriel. How you doing today, Greg?
I'm doing good. How about you?
Man, I'm doing pretty good. It's been kind of slow. There's a lot of crazy Bears rumors. It's that time of year where people just make up anything for clickbait or will really say anything. But
and then the media, on top of that, the media is doing the let's jump on Caleb.
Oh man, I hate it. I hate it.
And it's totally ridiculous because, this thing that came out last week, I had talked about that at least two and probably
you talked it last year.
Yeah.
On this show.
It was old news, very common news that he was looking into ways, his dad was, and his handlers were looking into ways to try to circumvent the process and see if they could not be locked into going number one overall to the Bears if they had any other options. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. You want to check out your options. I know the agent that they brought in as an advisor. He's a good friend of mine. He's been a friend of mine for literally 40 years.
40 years.
He's the guy that was doing it. An agent based in that part of the country is in Baltimore. And, everybody in the league knew this was going on. And so all of a sudden somebody's going to write a book and puts it in there and it's like it's new news. It's not new news.
And on top of that, I mean, can you really blame Caleb? Because as someone pointed out, he didn't get good coaching last year, and everything about the history of Chicago's quarterbacks and how we've supported our quarterbacks is true. But whatever Ryan Poles told him in that meeting, basically, I'm going to draft you no matter what. And Caleb ended up having a turnaround. I think now the people trying to rehash it now, and I even saw something on Twitter this morning. Some guy was on the Score saying Caleb.
Yeah, Ross Tucker, who's an ex-player, and he's the he does the Eagles preseason games. He's the analyst on the Eagles preseason games. He's got a podcast. He does some radio. He was kind of a journeyman type player, but he's got a media name. I saw it too. And the whole thing, who the fuck is Ross Tucker? He was a freaking lineman from Princeton. They want to, it's basically what it is piling on.
And it's also a time, I think one of the reasons, because the media doesn't have a lot to talk about, and you know how they are. They'll take any of those easy stories to try to get clicks. But this is one where I think it's pretty clear to anyone that's paid attention that Caleb wants to be here now. And anyone who watched how he reacted to the draft, how he talked to the media afterwards, he did the bear claw. He organized his teammates for off-season workouts. Now, sure, things didn't go great, but Caleb has embraced this city and is becoming a leader in that locker room. So people trying to take the quotes from last season before he even met with Ryan Poles and put them as to how he feels now, they're just very misguided.
Oh, for sure. And it's just the idea of the whole thing, trying to rehash it and dig up, make him look like the bad guy. And that's what they do here. They just, they go at you and go at you. They do the same thing to Justin. They hear something they don't like.
Or Rex, yeah.
Yeah, they go out of their way to kill somebody. It's ridiculous. And instead of looking at the situation the way it is, they brought in a new coach. You notice the coach said right away, hey, there hasn't been any problems with him since I've been here. I've been here 4 months. He's been a good worker. So, that is what it is. Then there was one media outlet that said, well, the Bears didn't have Caleb speak the other day when the veterans spoke on Wednesday.
They did that on purpose, yeah.
Yeah, and they said, well, he's got to get up in front of the press and get this out of the way. No, he doesn't. He doesn't have to say a damn thing.
Yeah.
Screw the
I don't think
press.
so either. Yeah.
You
And
know,
Ben
why,
Johnson.
why should he subject himself to their bullshit?
Yeah. I mean, and Ben Johnson got out in front of it anyway. He's already said we're turning the page on that. What happened before Ben Johnson was here, before Caleb was even drafted, though? I mean, because that's how far back it goes. It's
this goes back into February, and maybe just after the combine, so the first week of March, and then it ended.
100%. And so I think it's just something that this is the question that Squeegee asked. Do you consider Caleb's first year a throwaway now, or did he gain useful experience? I think he gained.
You play in a game, you gain experience. Yeah. It's real simple.
Live reps, man, and that's what
you're still seeing defenses. You're learning to recognize defenses, which brings up another thing: the film quote of he wasn't taught how to watch film. Well, then Biggs added something. Well, there's some people didn't know if he watched as much film as he should. Well, I was talking to a guy yesterday. He goes, you know how easy it is to find out if he was watching tape or not, at least on his own at home? Mm-hmm. All you got to do is check his iPad, because you got to log in, and it goes back into the team's video center to see who he was watching. Like I log in. I got capability to get every college game from the last 3 years. And the people who give me this know exactly when I'm on and exactly who I'm looking at.
Yeah. 100%. And that's the tough thing. I mean, when you're talking about when you're talking about reps from last year, that'll bring me to my next topic, because Ozzy Trapillo and Karan Amagaji are the guys currently 1-2 at left tackle with Braxton Jones out. And a lot of people are jumping to the conclusion that they're already battling for the starting job. And while I believe these reps are extremely valuable, especially for Karan, a guy who didn't get any last year, and this is what he needs, I think it's a little premature to be talking about them winning the starting job before and just excluding Braxton out of the conversation.
I agree with you. I got one little caveat to that, and I mentioned it with Aldo on Tuesday. These reps are very valuable, but you look at it from the standpoint of Karan's in his second year, Ozzy's in his first year. They're on rookie contracts. Braxton's in his last year. And regardless of what anybody wants to think of him as next year, he's going to get 15 to 20 million, and just the way he is right now.
Yep.
Okay, so just based on what tackles got in free agency, guys who weren't even starters, what they got. Okay, so in knowing that, and knowing how you got to adjust the cap for next year, they're already paying the 3 interior guys along the line, paying them pretty good money.
Big money next year.
Okay, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that, and I'm going to put a big if Karan or Ozzy take that job, that they try to move and get a draft pick from out of Braxton. It doesn't have to be at the end of August or September when the season starts. You could go all the way to the trade deadline.
Yeah, could be.
But you don't want to lose them in free agency and not get anything.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we could always end up getting a comp pick for him. I think that's something that's could finally be starting to change our way. But I agreed with that. I said one of those guys, either Karan Amagaji or Ozzy Trapillo, would really have to lock in and win that job. And then the other guy would have to look okay as well. And if we get to that situation and you get through a couple games in the season, and there are other teams out there needing a left tackle, we already know Braxton Jones is most likely not in our long-term plans. When you look at every other offensive lineman we have right now, the 4 other starters, those guys are all under contract through 2027. So is Karan Amagaji.
Well, let's see. If you pick up you got 20. Yeah.
I've already done the math.
Contract on right. Yeah. They're
and then you have that's assuming you pick up the 5th year contract, which is pretty much a no-brainer right now. But then you talk about Karan Amagaji, also 2027. Ozzy Trapillo through 2028. Luke Newman, the 6th rounder, through 2028. So every one of our core pieces of this line are under contract for a while, except for Braxton Jones. And that's where it's easy to see him getting written off if one of these other guys can win that job. And the thing that Ben Johnson wants out of that left tackle spot, based on what I've read, he wants more anchor. And I believe both of those guys have a better anchor than Braxton Jones. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I agree with that. But, Roshar, however you pronounce his name, he mentioned it. He goes, it's just a matter of getting him to sit better, bend his knees better, which it sounds simple, but it's got to become second nature.
Natural for him, yeah.
And he does get a little tall, and when he gets tall, he gets pushed back. And he's not, I'm not going to say he's narrow. Hell, he's 315 pounds. He doesn't have a narrow frame, but he's a high-cut kid that is, as compared to, say, Trapillo or Amagaji, he is narrower, but he's not narrow. But I like Braxton. And if somebody else gets him, they're going to get a steal. But at the same time, they're going to have to extend him when they get him, whoever gets him. I think he could be worth a decent draft pick. At least a 4th, maybe a 3rd.
I wouldn't see anyone giving us more than a 3rd, but I think we could get a 4th round pick for Braxton Jones. I think that's a pretty good bar to set. If you can get more than a 4th,
it's a guy. It's a starting left tackle. What are you going to pay for a starting left tackle?
Mm-hmm. And they're going to have to. If he was under a cheap contract for a couple more years, maybe we could squeeze a little bit more out of him. But considering wherever he goes, they're going to have to pay him $15 to $20 million a season. Yeah, I'd say a 4th rounder is probably pretty good, pretty much the sweet spot right there. But a 3rd would be beautiful.
Yeah.
Especially if you consider we could potentially, if Ian Cunningham finally lands a job next year, we could end up with that extra 3rd round pick next year.
Yeah, the way that goes, we could be waiting.
We've been waiting, man. Hopefully he gets that next year.
He had one right in the hand, and it didn't happen. Didn't work out.
I thought that was his spot, man. I thought that was his spot.
Yep.
I really did. The comp pick, really, someone asked what the comp pick would be. There's a lot of factors that go into comp picks. It's how much money he spends, and then what we do in free agency also matters as well.
It's a combination of your losses and your gains and the contract. So you could sign somebody and that person could get an equal or a similar contract to what Braxton got somewhere else, and it's an offset. So you get nothing.
I would say, looking at our roster heading into next year, I don't expect us to be big spenders in free agency next year. So I believe if we did let Braxton walk, there is a chance we'd be able to get a comp pick for him, but you never know how that works out,
Some people have us getting a 7th next year.
We got a 7th. It's official after the Tevin Jenkins deal, and what set us over was Coleman Shelton. Did you see how much money he got?
Yeah, he got. Well, he was a good player for the Rams.
Yeah,
and he went back in.
Coleman Shelton got us a 7th round pick, but we do have a 7th round comp pick coming back next year. It's our first one since.
Well, it won't be really official until the league hands it to you, and that'll be next spring.
Yep, 100%. Ronan asked, Greg, who is your favorite player to scout in your career? Who is the favorite player you've ever scouted? Do you have somebody that stuck out, or like?
Oh God, I mean, I've done thousands. I mean,
I saw that question. I was like, man, that's going to be a tough one. But
no, it is because I've done so many players. Just I'll put it this way: guys that are good players that after watching about a half, they jump out the tape, and you just know right away this guy's going to be a 1st round pick, and I'd love to have him for my team.
Marvin Harrison Jr. was one of those guys. First time I saw him as like a freshman. I mean, it was like, whew.
I got to tell you, like in that draft, in last year's draft, the LSU wide receiver that the Giants took, I had him as my number 1
Malik
receiver.
Neighbors, yep.
And the main reason being was the run after catch. His ability to get, turn a good play into an outstanding play was better than anybody else in the draft, I thought, last year.
100%. Yeah. He changed it up. He said, okay, do you have one that maybe is one that was a bad scouting report you had, but he actually got drafted high?
I'm not avoiding the question. Just that I'd have to go back and
yeah, there's
look.
so many. I know. I saw it and I was like,
I'll be honest, I don't have my old reports. They got filed into the paper cabinet a long time ago.
We got a better one here. How do you think the Bears defense is going to respond to Dennis Allen?
I think positively. I think I think on the D line there's a lot of competition, especially inside. And so that is going to play out. It's going to play out really well, both in the preseason and during the season, because they're going to be fighting for reps. Probably end up, you're going to see 4 guys getting 50% of the reps, and that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing.
Yeah. Someone said he used to tell Swift about Malik Neighbors, but I didn't like him much. It wasn't that I didn't like Malik Neighbors. I just liked Marvin Harrison Jr. and Rome Odunze more. And that was one of the things when you have 3 special wide receivers in a class, everyone's going to have them ranked differently. And I talked about that a lot. A lot of people would have Neighbors first. Some people would have Rome first. Some would have Marv first. But when you have 3 uniquely talented players like that, and you could even go further, because if you look at it, Brian Thomas Jr., his rookie season was nothing to shake a stick at. The other LSU.
He had an outstanding. He had actually. He and Neighbors had the best rookie seasons for the receiver class.
Mm-hmm.
And Rome, Rome was caught up in the situation. And the other guys, all 3 other guys had to be number 1 at their respective clubs.
Yep. And the one thing when I was looking at our wide receiver room last year, we had DJ Moore, we had Tyler Scott. I'm not sure if we had signed Keenan Allen yet, but even before we signed Keenan Allen, my biggest need that I thought we needed in that wide receiver room was size. And that's what Rome Odunze and Marvin Harrison Jr. and even Brian Thomas had that Malik Neighbors really didn't. So I wanted one of the bigger receivers, but I would have been happy with any one of those guys.
Well, Neighbors, he's faster, but Luther Burden would be more like Neighbors.
Yeah. Burden is that guy. Levante asks, what are your thoughts on Tremaine Edmonds maybe getting more time at the will linebacker spot?
I thought about it for a second when I saw it. To me, it makes sense because he's more athletic and has more range. So, but it really gets down to, and we don't know or understand. I knew that other defense like the back of my hand because I worked with it for so long.
The cover too.
I don't really know this one. So what is the Mike being asked to do? What's the Will being asked to do? But what Tremaine is very good at is coverage. And DJ isn't bad in coverage, but he doesn't have the speed. He's like, if you compared him to somebody, you can compare him to Lance. Their speed is almost identical coming out. Lance did not run well. He's a 4.77, 4.78 guy, but he played a lot faster. And so does TJ. But that may be, because of his instincts and his quickness between the tackles, it may be better for him to be at Mike and have Tremaine at will.
I think he's also a little underused as a blitzer, at least with Eberflus. I think Tremaine has talent to get after quarterbacks and be.
Buffalo used him that way.
Mm-hmm.
Buffalo sometimes lined him up outside, like almost not as an edge, but outside
like the wide edge. 9, yeah,
and had him rushing the passer, and he got production.
Yep, 100%. J2K asked, he said Ben Johnson said he came out and said they're working out Greg Hardy at the Sam linebacker spot. Do you see a fit there? And he said possibly in a role like Roosevelt Colvin had. Love that name, man. Roosevelt Colvin was a guy I liked. Haven't brought him up, I don't think, ever on the show. So
Rosie was my neighbor when I first got here. He lived like Jerry Azuma and Rosie, I bought a townhouse
Right in
the
between them
same
two?
place they had, and so they're both within like their buildings were like within 50 yards of mine.
Got you. It's the
But
Sam
yeah,
linebacker.
I mean, that's it's how does Dennis use the Sam in Flus's in a lot of defenses? The Sam only's playing 15, 18% of the snaps.
Yep.
So it's how is he being used, and the fact that he can rush the passer. So the old saying: the more you can do. Well, he's a real good special teams player. And if you can learn how to play the Sam for those limited amount of downs and be able to rush the passer in situations, now he's got three things he can do well.
100%. And now that we're on that, now we're talking about linebackers. I know you had something you wanted to talk about with Ruben Hippolyte, our 4th round pick, the speedy 4.39 linebacker out of Maryland.
Yeah, I was talking to a guy from another club yesterday, and he goes, "That was a real hot guy at the end." And I said, "Well, what happened?" He goes, "He tore up." He goes, "First of all, the regional scouts or the area scouts for the combine, screwed the kid over. They didn't give him, the grade he deserved, and then he only got 6 votes for the combine. You need 7. He got 6 votes for the combine. And so people had him as an afterthought, and it was really due to what the combine had. And then so now he tears up the
it's pro day.
Pro day, as did Newman.
Yep.
Luke Newman. So all of a sudden you get those numbers and people are like, wait a minute, this guy's a 4.4 linebacker, and then you look at the rest of the numbers. He had like a 6.9 or a 6.8 3-cone, something like that. I mean, crazy numbers. And he made at least 330 visits.
I think he said 15.
Did he say that?
Yeah.
He made. I know he made a bunch, and the pro day was late. The pro day was in the last week of March. He just blew up after that. He was going to get drafted, and
I mean, he said he was spending. He talked about it with Courtney Cronin because she asked him about the perception of him being overdrafted, and he was like, "Look," he made a joke about you got to run fast and work hard. So he made a joke about the 40 time. But he said teams were interested. He said he spent, while everyone else was doing these pre-draft stuff, he went to 15 plus teams. He was going on a flight to a team, meet with the team, would get on a flight, go meet with another team the same day, sleep over at a hotel, next day, wake up, go meet with 2 more teams, take 2 other flights across the country. And he said he did that for weeks, meeting with as many teams as he could. Any team that wanted to meet with him, he was willing to go meet him. So he was a guy who put in the work for sure.
The tape speaks for itself. His tape, if you look at it, he's really good. And this guy that I was talking to is a real good linebacker scout. And I said, we were talking, I said, when I look at linebackers and safeties, the first trait I look for is his instincts. Mm-hmm. And they got to be anticipators. And that's what this kid is. This kid reacts really, really quickly, knows where the ball is, doesn't get fooled. He's good in coverage. He's so damn athletic. So, basically what it got down to, it was a screw up by the 2 scouting combines, National and Blesto, on really valuing the kid. But he took care of business with the pro day, and then he got hot. So did the Bears take him maybe a round too early? Yes, but this guy said he knows some people on the Bears staff. Now, he doesn't work for the Bears, and he said the coaching staff really wanted this guy. And so they probably took him around early, but they said, so what? We want him.
Yeah, and when you got a linebacker who can run a 4.39, I think that's one thing that people are missing there. Squeegee asks about some of the depth players on the roster. He says, will Noah Sewell see the field, and why do we hold on to players like him, Ryan Bates and Dominique Robinson, etc.? I mean, the easy answer is depth. You got to develop guys. I mean, they're draft picks.
Well, number one, you could have 90 players right now. Why let them go?
Yeah.
So then they got to earn a job. Depending on how many, I mean, it's how some of these younger guys work out on the offensive linemen, whether Bates is going to be around. The fact is he's got an arthritic shoulder. That's what the problem is. It's fact. People know about it. He went to Panama to have stem cell treatment on his shoulder. So that is a concern. But since he had that done, he supposedly hasn't had issues with the arthritis in the shoulder. I mean, he had movement problems.
Yeah.
But what you don't know is how long will that stem cell treatment last before it kind of locks up again. And so because of that, I think that it's probably better than 50-50 that he won't be here. You pick up $3.5 million if you cut him. Somebody wrote, well, if it's a post-June 1st cut, it doesn't matter if it's post-June 1st or not. You pick up $3.5 million.
Yeah. His is
that's
no
the rest
matter
of
what,
the salary. That there's no guaranteed money, so there's no money that would, you could cut him today or you can cut him September 1st, and it's the same. You pick up $3.5 million.
100%.
But it depends, guys like Bill Murray. What we saw from Bill Murray and the little bit he played last year before he tore his pec, was that real or was it a facade? And how many are they going to keep? They're going to keep 9. Most teams keep 9 plus the snapper. The snapper doesn't count as a lineman. And then they dress 7. So, and then some of these other guys that were on the practice squad last year, let me get into the roster.
They're still talking about Nick Chubb.
Who's they talking about Nick Chubb?
The chat. Everyone always wants to bring up Nick Chubb. I still don't. There's all these rumors now of us signing running backs and everything. I'm still not on it. That's what I'll bring up this question here by Ronan. Because I really like Kyle Monangai. And
I do too.
What are your thoughts on him possibly being overhyped? He feels like fans are getting similar hype to when we drafted Tristan Ebner. I don't remember anyone getting hyped over Tristan Ebner. He was I didn't.
This guy led the Big Ten in rushing 2 years in a row. And what's nice about it is Maryland wasn't exactly or Rutgers rather wasn't exactly a highly skilled offensive team. He was their offense. They knew he was getting the rock, and they didn't stop him.
I think he's just such a good running back. He runs with that great contact balance, the low center of gravity. He runs with violence. He's shifty. I think he's going to be a good player in the NFL. Now,
I do too.
I think overrating him is something we probably shouldn't do, but J2K points it out. This is the thing you got to love about Kyle Monangai.
No fumbles in his career.
0 fumbles. He knows how to protect the ball. This is a guy who he's going to have a role in the NFL. And now he might not be a 3-down back. He might not be your top pick in fantasy football, whatever. But this is a guy who is going to get on the field and he's going to get carries. And I see him doing that as early as this season with the Bears.
No question. Hey, just look at history of running backs in the league in the last 10 years. There's a lot of day 3 running backs that put up big numbers. And not only that, there's free agent running backs that put up big numbers. I
mean, and he's following the guy who played at Rutgers before him is Isaiah Pacheco on the Chiefs, who was also a 7th round pick and kind of has a similar running style. Now he has a little bit more elbow throwing in his running, but
Pacheco is faster. He's got more juice to him, but this guy's stronger, more powerful.
100%. Yeah, I think he's real. The reason he fell to the 7th round is because of how much talent was at running back this year.
No question.
It was absolutely crazy in my opinion. Have you heard anything about the Kayvon Thibodeau rumors? I haven't even heard this.
No, I think, in fact, I was surprised when they picked up the 5th-year option, but I think I know they did it. I think because it's expensive. It's going to cost them like $14 million or something like that for the 5th year. I don't think he'll be there. Because they could probably get at worst a 2 for him, maybe.
Yeah.
But you got to figure, because you got him for the rest of this year and then all next year because they picked up the 5th-year option. Maybe you can get him for a 3 because they're the ones getting rid of him. He's never been. I mean, he's not like he's a double-digit sack guy. What's the best he's had? 7.5, 8 in his first 3 years. So, but with them having Carter and Burns, it's nice. I mean, it's nice to have the depth, and it doesn't cost them a lot this year. It's his regular 4th-year salary, but next year it's that 5th-year money, and that's going to be a little bit costly for him.
As far as the Bears, I would not want to give up a 2nd-round pick for Kayvon Thibodeau. I'm just going to throw that out there. I don't want to do it. He is young. He's good. Levante said he got 11.5. Let me pull it up. Yeah, he had 11.5 in 2023, 4 in 2022, and 5.5 last year. But if he could get another 11.5 sack season, but 2nd-round pick, it's going to be tough because right now the Giants don't have a ton of leverage.
Well, don't forget, now you had the 11.5, and that was 22.
23.
And then he dropped.
Yeah.
Or rather 23, and then 24 dropped.
Only 5.
They had Burns, and you figure with Burns, he should get the same thing because they're going to concentrate on stopping Burns.
You would think.
But
didn't happen.
But I think he has got.
He missed
at least
5
in
games
college.
last
I
year,
haven't studied him in the pros, but in college he was a hot and cold player, but a very talented hot and cold player. I mean, put it this way: if he's available, do you look into it? Of course, you look into it. That doesn't mean you're going to do it.
Yeah, that one's tough. I do believe the Giants are going to want to move him with their selection of Abdul Carter. I kind of thought the writing was on the wall there, but I also don't think they're in a hurry to move him. And if you think back, you remember how the Giants are. If you look back to when they had Eli Manning and they went to the Super Bowl, they had a similar thing there with 3 stud pass rushers. I got to remember the names. They had I believe they had Strahan on one side, Justin Tuck on the other, and they had drafted another guy in the 1st round. Well, it was No,
I know what you mean.
He was from Boston College.
I don't think he was a 1st-round pick, but he had one of those long African names.
Yeah, it was one of those long names, and I'm not remembering it. I know the guy.
And I should know because I worked there for 17 years, but that was after I was gone. So,
let me see. I'm going to remember it. Justin Tuck. They had Strahan. OC. No. See, they had OC Umenyiora. Okay.
That's what I was thinking of. Umenyiora.
They had Umenyiora. They had Michael Strahan, and they had Justin Tuck. Now,
Tuck and Strahan, though, were both getting old.
Yeah, but when you went a few years past that, they still had Umenyiora, they still had Tuck, and they drafted Jason Pierre-Paul. So both of the last 2 times the Giants have been in the Super Bowl, they've had 3 quality defensive ends. So it's like it's something that the Giants have done before and have had success with. So that's why I'm like, they're not going to just give Kayvon Thibodeau away, and that's where I'm looking. I'm not going to want to give up a 2nd-round pick for him, and they might just hold on to him and end up using 3 pass rushers.
Well, I'll use it this way. He may be there this year. He won't be there next year.
Yeah, I could see that. They could trade him in the offseason for sure, yeah.
But, it depends how they're, if they got some holes somewhere and they need him to fill a hole, to get another player to fill a hole, they will do that.
Oh, yeah. Right now, you got to wonder, and someone also brought up the NASCAR package. You could rush with all three of them. Abdul Carter is coming back from that hairline fracture.
Right, and there's people who think that could, if it's not totally healed, a hairline fracture could turn into a full-fledged break, and then he's out 4 or 5 months.
So they could always work him in slow. And when you're a rookie, I mean, sometimes you want to work the guys in slow anyway. But that's something I don't think there's going to be much movement on that right now. I think right now that's all rumors. Unless a team goes with a big offer for Kayvon Thibodeau, I don't think they're moving him this year, at least not until the trade deadline.
Oh, I agree with that. I agree, but I don't think it'll happen in September, end of August.
Yep, 100%. And that's where a lot of people are leaning that way right now, and I don't see it happening. You look, Levante says Brian Burns, 27, Abdul Carter's 21, Kayvon's 24. So that's 3 young pass rushers. They'll end up keeping 2 most likely, but I don't think the Bears are interested right now. I don't think that's what we're looking for. Maybe
they paid when you
maybe.
look at, but the guy likely out just from the fact of Carter just got his contract and they paid Burns last year.
Mm-hmm.
So who's the odd guy out?
Yeah, that's Kayvon Thibodeau, and he's the guy who he's probably the 3rd most talented out of the 3. I mean, Burns is more accomplished, and Abdul Carter is a little bit higher of a pick in the draft, but that's a tough situation, guys. But I don't think the Bears are interested right now. We don't. Could we fit him into the cap? Yes. Are we trying to give away a 2nd-round pick for a pass rusher right now? I don't think so. I think they want to see what we have from Dayo Odengbo. I also think this team really values pressure up the middle. I think we're going to find that out pretty soon.
Yeah, no question about that. And will they need another outside guy? I mean, part of it is how much, what kind of a jump does Austin Booker make from year 1 to year 2? Now, there were some clips of him doing some stuff, and he is obviously bigger. Is he stronger? That remains to be seen. But I know from people who know him, he's a very conscientious kid, very hardworking kid. It's important to him. So he's going to do whatever it takes. I mean, he was down when they had that group down in Florida, and Jarrett was talking about it.
Yeah, Dexter invited everybody down there.
Yeah, there was 3 guys down there. There was Tez, there was Booker, and
Gervon
Dexter. So I mean that alone tells you something about Booker.
Yeah, he's working. I mean, he's working. You didn't see Dom Rob there, so that's good. Good to see. Let's see. J2K asked, with the $8 million added to this year's cap from Joe Thuney's extension, do you see that being used for June 1st cuts, or will it be saved for later in the season in case of an injury? And remember, if we don't use cap space this year, it does roll over to next year, guys.
Okay, now
know that.
I tweeted something out right before we came on. Right now, when the Thuney contract becomes official, it goes through the league, and then you'll see the cap space. The cap space is going to be about $14.5 million. Okay, you need just to run your team during the year 5 to 6. So you really don't have 14.
Yeah.
Because the 5 to 6, your salary cap comes, or not your salary, your practice squad players come out of that. I forgot how much practice squad players make. A rookie this year on the practice squad gets $13,000 a week minimum. 2nd-year players $13,000 a week. You get into your 3rd year at $17,500. And you always got, and that's minimum. You can give more than that.
Yeah.
So that times 16, 17 players a week is a lot of money. The people on IR are obviously getting paid. You got to have money to sign players to replace injured guys and whatever. So you need that 5 to 6 million. You can't be cutting practice squad guys and go with 10 practice squad guys and teams have had to do that because they don't have enough money. So, but you want an optimum situation, not be short.
Yeah, 100%. So I mean, and Poles has shown in the last couple of years he's willing to. Usually, he has a plan for that money, either extending someone late in the season, possible extension that could come up, or rolling that money over to next year and finding a way to use it then.
Well, he's still got 2 people he could restructure, and the players don't even have to technically agree to it. It's automatic. All you do is convert salary to bonus. You hand them a check, and you create money right away.
I mean, we could do that with Montez and DJ.
You could do it, DJ and Montez.
Yep. And next year we'd be able to do it with Jalen Johnson's as well. So we have those opportunities. If we really did want to create cap space for a bigger move, the opportunities are there. But right now, I think this roster, at least until we get to training camp, is probably pretty set. You might see.
I don't see anything. I listen to what Poles says, and one thing Poles doesn't do is bullshit. When he tells you something, that's what it is. And he said, I don't foresee anything until later on, maybe till around we get to camp. But they said, you can bring in extra players. So I want to see what we got now.
Yep. And they want to give the coaching staff a chance to see what they have. Because we have new coaches. They haven't worked with a lot of these players. They're still trying to figure it out themselves. But yeah, I don't see any major moves happening before camp. Maybe a potential minor one, especially if somebody's hurt or ends up getting cut. But right now, I think our roster is pretty set till camp.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I was a couple other things I was thinking about. The wide receiver room is gone from being the depth from being weak a year ago to pretty strong now. Guys like Tyler Scott, who was a draft choice 2 years ago, he could be gone. But how about this? I was looking at it. If you use, say, DJ, then you got Rome, you got the kid they drafted, Luther Burden this year. Then they signed Zacchaeus. They signed
Devin DuVernay, Miles Boykin.
All these guys, the slowest guy, they're all 4.48 or better. Let me go back.
Fast guys in there. And I mean, it's also a little bit bigger now. You got a couple guys over 6 feet at least. Rome's still the only big guy, unless Miles Boykins makes the team. But
Maurice Alexander, I mean, he was a rookie free agent. He might be slower. Or not Maurice Alexander, J.P. Richardson. I know he runs in the 4.5s, but he's a rookie free agent.
Yeah.
Torre, I think, was in the high 4.4s. John Jackson.
Oh, yeah. Samari Toure, I think he ran a 4.39, actually.
Yeah.
Toure.
So, Zacchaeus, DuVernay, they're all in the 4.4s. Tyler Scott was in the 4.4s. All these guys can run now.
Great point there from J2K. He was bringing up Austin Booker. He said he needs to just learn some moves to counter his long arm move, and he should be in a better position this year.
Well,
but
they got the older coach they brought in is a pass rush specialist. He's almost as old as me.
Yeah, he's got over almost 50 years of experience coaching.
He is. He's been a legend for a long time.
Yeah,
this guy's a hell of a coach.
And I believe he was pretty much done with the NFL. So us selling him and getting him to take this job, I think he saw something he wanted to be a part of here, and I that's good.
He was with the LSU program for a while when Saban was there, and you always saw him around. The guy's just a hell of a football coach.
Yes, sir. And then OKC Bear Boy asks, do you see Luther Burden potentially being a factor in returning kicks or punts this year?
Nope. That's what DuVernay was signed for.
Yep.
DuVernay was a 2-time Pro Bowl player as a returner.
Yep. And one of the better kick returners in the game. He can return punts as well. I like that.
And Luther was not used that much as a returner. Look at the total number of returns he had in his career.
I think he has that skill set, but no, I don't think you put him back there unless you need it. DuVernay really plays well. And Zacchaeus and Tyler Scott can go back there in a pinch as well. As far as the punt return,
Tyler's just got to make the team.
Yeah, Tyler. That's his biggest worry right now is making the roster. Let me see. I think that was it as far as the questions here. Do you have any thoughts on Shamar Turner, and do you think he's going to get spots at or a lot of reps at defensive end as well as defensive tackle?
Alan answered that last week. He said he's a tackle. We drafted him as a tackle, and he's playing tackle. He said, and when he's real comfortable there, then maybe you expand. But right now, he's got too much to learn to play tackle.
Yeah, I see that.
I know the other thing I want to bring up, but it's just a little side note. So, with Luke Newman.
Luke Newman.
Okay. I went just to compare measurables. And I'm not saying, because Luke Newman's tape is really good. I mean, that's the guy that I was on back in September when I first did his tape. I said, wow. And another guy that the combine didn't give him justice to, and then he goes out to the East-West and was the best lineman out at the East-West, has a great pro day. His measurables are almost identical to one of the best two centers in football. Linderbaum from Baltimore. Okay. Luke Newman is about 3/4 of an inch taller, same weight. Arm length is within 1/8 of an inch of them. Their 40s are like Luke is like a 504, Linderbaum was like a 505. Newman had a 35 vertical, Linderbaum had a 32.5. Their 20 shuttles were almost identical, where Linderbaum was a lot better, was in the 3-cone. Their long jumps were both 9'2". Linderbaum did 24 reps and Newman did 29 reps at 225. It's like you look at the traits, they're the same.
I like him at center too. I think he's a guy, you put him as a long-term developmental center and let him learn behind Drew Dahlman. Ooh, man. Let's see. Oh, and then J2K is talking about a guy who could potentially make the roster would be undrafted free agent Jade Walker, who's 6'4" and ran a 4.4.
Yeah, I did tape on him, and I talked about him with Aldo. I think he only had like 30-something catches. They didn't have a great quarterback situation at Texas A&M. He's a good route runner. He'll go in the middle. Didn't use him deep as much as you'd think with his speed, but that I think part of it had to do with what they had at quarterback. No, he's an interesting guy.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you have a guy who's 6'4" and can run 4.4s, and J2K says he's a pure hands catcher, a guy like that, he always has a shot to make the roster. He really has to stay healthy and have a good camp, and he can get it done.
Oh, yeah. And I'll tell you that, I mean, the competition probably keeps 6. There's a lot of competition for those 6.
Oh, yeah. A lot right now. I mean, our first 4, I mean, I say the first 4 is they're making the roster as long no matter what. You got DJ, you got Rome, you got Luther, and you got Devin DuVernay. I think those guys are on the roster. And then Tyler Scott's going to have to earn a spot. Even Olamide Zacchaeus, he's going to have to earn his spot. And no one's just going to be handed it out to him. Jay asked, do you see Major Burns, the undrafted free agent safety, potentially making the roster?
There's a safety I like better. I'm not a big Burns fan myself. Yeah. He's okay. But the other guy, Tasheem Johnson from Oregon, now he's a guy that'll knock your dick off.
I like him.
Here's my language. He's smaller. He's like 5'10" and change, but he's over 200 pounds, and he's very athletic. Burns is a guy that, he's got the measurables, and he makes plays here, he make a play there, but he doesn't show the ability to control a game from the back end, where the other guy, he can do that. Because he'll come up in the box and he'll just lay the lumber and knock you out. I mean, and personally, you'd think, okay, he's going to be number 4. Whoever's going to be his number 4, so he's got to be a big special teams player. And that's what I think that kid will be. I'm not so sure Burns will do that. People like Burns because he went to LSU, and he's got good numbers. The other guy went to Oregon, and he doesn't have the height numbers, but he got everything else.
Yep. Yeah, I think Tysheem Johnson might, even though he's not as big of a name, I do think he might have a little bit better chance to make this roster. I have seen a lot of rumors going around right now that the Bears are looking into signing a safety. I don't really see that. I don't think signing another safety on a 1-year deal is the answer for our safety room right now. I think that's just purely made up. I don't even know where it came from, but I did see it. I saw people talking about the Bears are interested in signing a safety, and I was like,
I have not seen that from anybody credible, put it that way.
Gotcha. Yeah. I think most of the safeties out there as well, if you think about it, they are guys who Ryan Poles passed on last year, guys who Ryan Poles has not shown any interest in during free agency this year. And now all of a sudden we're going to sign them when Brisker's back. And I don't know. I just don't see that right now.
No, they had an opportunity to draft safety. They didn't do it. They had opportunities to sign free agents. Didn't do it. Even after the first couple waves of free agency, there were still good safeties there that were available for 1-year deals. Guys who've been starters in the league and decent starters. They didn't.
Julian Blackman's still out there. Yeah. I think that's why people are talking about it, but the Bears haven't shown interest before. So why would they do it now?
Right.
Some Irish Barracuda asked about Shamar Turner being out of shape. I don't think he was out of. The problem was he played through a stress fracture in his foot. They didn't find it until he was at the Senior Bowl. So then he had to heal at the Senior Bowl. This is in February. So
right, and then he couldn't. Then he had to get off. He couldn't work out for the combine. Couldn't work out for the pro day. Didn't do anything. So now it was rest. And when you rest, you're not in shape. Now the guy who was out of shape was Graham from Michigan, who was puking at the Browns thing. And the guy I was talking to yesterday, he told me an interesting thing about this guy. He said he's a good kid, but he's spoiled rotten. He comes from money, and he's not what you would call a overzealous worker. And so he said it did not surprise them or his team when he was totally out of shape at the Bears or the Browns rookie mini camp.
Oh yeah.
So that could have been, a lot of people wanted that guy. That could have been a dodge bullet right there.
Mm-hmm. Someone else mentions Kyler Gordon playing a safety. I also would like to see that. And J2K said a guy to watch out for is last year's undrafted free agent linebacker, Carl Jones from UCLA. He has that speed that Dennis Allen likes, and we'll see what he can do in preseason, but definitely a dark horse guy to watch.
He was an edge at UCLA, not really a linebacker.
Mm-hmm. And he can thump too. I saw it last year in camp. He's a guy who, when he comes up and hits you, even in those practices where you're not really hitting, when he comes up and pop, you could hear it. You could hear the contact. He's a guy who
was playing opposite, if I remember correctly, he was playing opposite Latu,
yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. At edge for UCLA, he was like, and they had him listed at 6'1", and he was 5'11 and a half.
Yep. A little bit shorter than we thought, but he's a guy. I like him as a linebacker. He's a guy, he's fun to watch. He was a sleeper of mine in training camp last year. Most people have forgot about him, but same with Noah Sewell. People question these guys, but you hope one of these guys can potentially develop, and that's what they're supposed to do in the offseason is get better. And now you have a new coach who can get more out of them, potentially put them in a better spot to succeed. So we'll see what we have at linebacker. But right now, I would say Hippolyte is the guy to watch out for to earn that starting Sam job.
Yep. But I think based on where he played at Maryland, at worst, he's a backup at Mike and Will.
Yeah.
And he's got the frame that can do that.
And that's what we might need is someone to back up the Mike, and especially if we have an injury in the linebacker core. We don't really have a guy there right now who can come in and play all the positions.
Well, that was really Sanborn last year. Yeah. Sanborn was the starting Sam, but he didn't play much. But if something happened to either of the other two guys, he was moving into that spot.
Yep. 100%. And my guy Levante has a question about the schedule. I imagine Greg doesn't care much about the schedule. You're kind of like me in this regard, but he
Got to
asked
play who you got to play.
Yeah, he asked do you see any high spots or low spots or anything really interesting on the schedule this year?
Yeah, I mentioned it when we did this, when the schedule came out 2 weeks ago, right? And we talked about it, and it was just they got a couple times when there's 2 road games in a row.
Yep.
And I don't necessarily like that. Now, the first time it happens, there's a bye in between because they got the early bye. So it's not too much of a bite in the rear end, but just having to play 2 road games in a row twice during the year, that can be tough. But aside from that, hey, you know what? You knew who you're going to play. Now the schedule just tells you when you're going to play them. Yep. And you got to be ready to play. It's real simple.
In the NFL, there's no bye weeks is when you're playing a game, and every team in the NFL can win any given Sunday. But I do think people overrate the schedule a lot. People always talk a lot about the schedule. My man Jay asked, are you concerned with Luther Burden's soft tissue injury? No. I'm not at this point, but
at this time of the year, they err the side of caution because you don't want something little to turn into something big.
You don't want something to end up lingering and costing them all
right.
season.
So you let him sit for a few days, and they didn't say where. In fact, the fact that he even said something was a surprise to me because in previous years they wouldn't say anything. But he the second last day of rookie minicamp, he landed on the ball, and that's where he may have some bruised ribs and stuff like this, and they just they're in. Even though they're not supposed to have contact, they can have semi-contact. Maybe they just want to hold him out another week. We'll find out.
Yeah, 100%. And J2K says it. I mean, once you get 4 to 6 games in the season, you pretty much just throw strength of schedule out of the window, especially since every year there's such diversity in change from the year before. In the past 20 years in the NFL, at least 3 new teams make the playoffs every single year. So, and you usually have a team that goes worst to first as well. Doesn't happen every single team. Yeah. I think it's like 17 out of the last 20 years. At least one team has went worst to first, and a couple times multiple teams. So a lot of diversity and parity in the NFL, and that's why that strength of schedule gets thrown out the window. The teams we think are going to be good now, you never know. Last year, 49ers were one of the top rated teams by everybody going into the NFL. They fell apart.
Yep.
And that happens. So that's something to keep an eye on. And I don't really worry too much about the schedule, except for the NFC North guys. Those are the teams I worry about. We got to take care of our division, and I hope they lose. That's how I root for it.
You got to win 4 out of your 6 division games. You have 100%. To.
And we haven't done that in a while.
Right.
Yep. Let's see. Yep, I think that's... Anybody got any final questions for Greg? It's been let me see. Let's see. You got any final thoughts, Greg? I think right now we're kind of it's kind of the slow zone. And I don't really like to talk about a lot of the dumb rumors, but we have another camp coming up next week.
There's no substance to rumors.
Yep.
So unless it, like you say, unless it comes from a credible source, I don't give it any mind. And then when you look at some of the stuff, let's just see what goes on in OTAs. I don't care about the Caleb talk. It's going to be a pain in the ass to Caleb for a little while, but all you got to do is
the media lets it go.
But this is Chicago. They won't.
I know.
They live on negativity.
They'll be asking about it week 10. Like, we'll be coming off a close win or a loss, and they'll be like, "Oh, does this have any effect on you not wanting to be here, or when you didn't want to?" And they'll be like, "Oh my goodness, here we go."
And they got the guy who asked the worst questions at every presser is gone, but there'll be somebody else to take his place.
Yep. J2K did get a final question in here. I like this one. Do you have any excitement for either Jamry Chroma or Xavier Carlton, a defensive
Carlton
end?
can't run, so nothing.
Nothing
No
on
one.
Carlton. I did like
Carlton is a like a 5'08", 40 guy.
Yeah. He's big.
That's
He's
the
got
kid
that
from
length.
Cal, right? That's the kid from
Yeah.
Cal, right? Yeah, he can't.
Now, I
run.
do like Jamry Chroma, though, man. Chroma is a guy with a lot of burst off the line. We got him last year. He's shown flashes at training camp.
You know, he was a guy that, though, he got a bunch of sacks his final year, but most of his sacks in college came from inside, not outside.
Another guy who could potentially move inside and get some reps on passing downs. And that's something Dennis Allen has shown he does like to do, is use that NASCAR package or come out with 4 guys who can get after the quarterback. So it's going to be fun to watch. I'm ready for it. Greg, as always, man, it's an honor to have you on here, and always a pleasure to talk to you, my man.
What are you doing for the holiday weekend?
I don't know yet. Haven't decided, but hopefully something fun.
Well, as I told you, I'm like bachelor for a while because my wife got transferred. So
his wife, bachelor time for Greg Gabriel.
Yeah,
oh man,
no, it's not really, but she's.
Greg did know Jim Irsay. Did you want to say anything about Jim Irsay? That's a good question.
I only met him once. I
Gotcha.
had a conversation with Ballard that night, and I had known from Chris and some other people that really knew him, because he had this persona of being strange and everything else. One of the most generous people that you'd ever want to meet. I read a thing yesterday, and a guy was telling a story. He said it was an ex-player, somebody in his family died, and Jim got a hold of the player and said, I want to pay for the funeral. The guy said, no. Jim called back, I'm paying for the funeral. And so then it came out, this guy says, so he did some research. Just last year, that man paid for 300 funerals for people he never knew.
Oh, wow.
Just little things like that he does. Now, he's got one thing, because I'm, a half-assed guitar player, was decent until I got arthritis in my hands. But he's got the largest and best and most expensive guitar collection in the world.
Oh, wow.
I mean, we're talking famous musician guitars that's probably worth close to $1 billion.
Oh, wow. Wow. Okay.
And they're all in Indianapolis. And I mean, some of the instruments he's bought, Jerry Garcia from the Grateful Dead, he's got his guitar. He's got some Beatles guitars and stuff, to just, instruments that cost him $800,000-$900,000 just to purchase at auction, and then they just keep going up. I just wonder what his daughters are going to do with that. Chris said, I started to say, he said, Greg, he's the last of the old school owners, and because that's what he was brought up as. And so then I didn't realize at first that the daughters were going to take over. And so I sent him a text yesterday. I said, I see the daughters are going to take over. I said, I hope you've got a good relationship with them. So I got a great relationship. He said, what Jim did when I came here is he had me mentor them to understand football and understand the front office and things like that. So he says, I've built a really super relationship with them over the years. He said, but at the same time, he goes, I don't care who the owner is, I got to win.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's the bottom line in football. It is a business, and you do got to win. Awesome little segment there, Greg. And I'm going to echo your sentiments. Hope everyone has a great Memorial Day weekend. Enjoy your weekend, guys, and bear down. We're out of here. Greg,
See you
always
later.
a pleasure, my man.